And that's key, really. We do, we're HUD certified, and so we do a lot of modifications. We're dealing with people now who are in over their head. They got into loans they didn't understand. You know, they've readjusted the rate to a high rate. Now they can't afford the payment. And I think it's just really important that if a person feels like there's trouble ahead, to make that call as soon as possible.
Definitely.
Because the longer they wait, you know, typically the worse it's going to get. I mean, by waiting and putting your head in the sand, nothing is going to get better. So we really urge people to reach out for a counseling agency or some kind of help to see, you know, what can be done before it's too late.
And I think it's important too, as we deal with the financial literacy aspect of foreclosure, there's a lot of emotion around it. Mm-hmm. We have found that when we work with individuals who are calling on the phone or coming into the office and so forth, before we can even get to kind of peel back the onion on the issue of foreclosure, you really have to deal with their emotional state of being on the verge of, in some cases, of being homeless. So I think I've found that foreclosure prevention counselors that we have on staff now also have to infuse some of those mental health counseling skills. You know,
absolutely,
in what they're doing.
Sure.
Absolutely. Sure. There's failure, there's anger, there's disappointment, you know, and just the fear of losing your house is just overwhelming.
I'd just like to say this about that too, though, Cindy, that if you take on the Save Our Home plan at heart, if a financial institution or a lender takes it to heart and puts it in the way it's supposed to be applied, a lot of the problems that we're having, we wouldn't have. And this is not a commercial. But for example, when our people call and say, I cannot make this payment, or they've been avoiding us and it's now 3 months, the first thing that we do is to do a complete overview of their financial situation with documentation to make sure they're telling the truth. The second thing is you figure out, well, how much can they afford to pay each month based on this new scenario? And then you take a long look at all of the facets of what's happening to this family, and you back into what they can afford if they have indicated they have a burning desire to keep their home. And that's how we've been approaching it, with modifying loans down to 2% interest rate. So, because that's the level at which an amortization schedule would be sustainable by this family. And it's working because people are staying in their homes, they're making the new payments, the new modified payments, but it's about approaching this in not just from the sense of the law, but the sense of the right thing to do.
Right. You know, the flip side of that, so it's very important for people to talk to their lender and see if something can be done.
Yes.
Sort of the flip side that's been a little annoying to me, I'll confess, is for people who look at their home merely as a financial asset and not as a home, and say, oh, my mortgage is more than the house is worth today,
Right.
and so I'm just going to walk away from it. I scratch my head and I say, aren't you like, isn't this your home? And two, when your house had appreciated in value, if you buy a house for $150 and it's suddenly worth $450, do you go to the bank and say, let me pay you more for this house because it's now worth a lot more?
Right.
I've never heard anybody say that.
Like that, right?
I really wonder when they say, gee, now my house is worth less than what I paid for it. I'm not going anywhere, so I'm not realizing the loss, but I'm just going to walk away because I don't feel like I should have to pay for a house that's not worth as much
And it's also
anymore.
detrimental to the neighborhoods. You know, when you see all foreclosures and people just walking away from their home because it's, you know, not worth as much, it not only damages that person's credit rating and their financial, you know, their credit score and how they're looked at by banks and lenders moving forward, it also impacts all of the neighbors and the surrounding community. Because when, you know, people just walk away, it hurts everybody.
And that's another aspect of financial literacy, is understanding what impact that will have on you long term.
Yes. The ones that annoy me, though, are the ones who want to take advantage of the system. Similar to what you were saying, well, they're doing it for everybody else. Okay, so maybe I can still afford this payment, but why shouldn't I have a break too, like everyone else? Right. Those are the ones who just poison the water for everyone else, who's out there just trying to paddle.
What is the impact if you walk away from your house?
Well, they eventually foreclose, and the foreclosure process stays on your credit report for 10 years. It's detrimental. I mean, if you go in to get a car loan or a new mortgage and it's in your name and the foreclosure is on you, you are not getting a good interest rate. No bank is going to give you a favorable rate once you've been through that process for years. I mean, you know, after 3 to 4 years, if the person starts rebuilding their credit right away, meaning taking out new lines of credit, paying it on time, and never making a mistake, you know, within 3 years it will get better. But that hit to the credit report, I mean, it's serious. It's nothing to be taken lightly. If you want to pay 21% on your car loan, then go ahead, walk away from your house maybe. But, you know, there's definitely consequences to doing it. And I think people need to think about that.
The other thing, too, excuse me, is a lot of people are overlooking the fact that if the house is foreclosed on and they sell it and there's a shortfall, then that may be taxable. You may have to pay tax on that deficiency. And people are $175,000 to be taxed is a lot. That's a big penalty for walking away.
And to owe Uncle Sam, that's not the person you want to owe.
Exactly.
You know,
They make sure they get
right? Exactly.
Uncle Sam gets it.
So a lot of people overlook that, and that's a huge impact.
That's an important point. And interest rates, I mean, since we're talking about financial literacy, interest rates on credit cards, on car loans, on mortgages, that's something important for people to watch for. They look at sale price and don't think about what that's actually going to cost in the long run. I'm sure that's something that you cover when you talk about.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a lot of people get credit cards when they're in school and they buy things and they don't really think about interest rates because you're young and this is when you're starting your credit and you just buy and so
Two sons like that.
there you go, right. It's like, oh, it's plastic, I want this, yay, let's go. And then if that debt hangs around for 10 years because you're paying 15% interest rate, I think the average now is like 14%. And 14% on like $1,000 balance would take somebody about 10 years to pay off. And you'd pay more than double the $1,000 with the interest rate. So it's something really for people to be cognizant of. If you're having a 21% interest rate on any kind of a credit or anything that you owe, it's going to take you a tremendous amount of time to pay that off. So people need to think about their credit scores in financial literacy. And in our seminars and on our website, we really go in depth regarding credit and how it impacts you. And the final price, we have calculators. Anybody can go to the website, consolidatedcredit.org, plug in their numbers, and you will see what it costs you in interest rate and how long it will take you to pay it off.
If you pay the minimum.
If you pay the minimum.
That's a scary thing, those minimums.
And you probably can't even remember what you purchased.
Oh, right. No, absolutely. And most people, when they call us, they don't even know how much they owe. I mean, they have no concept. They are usually, ballpark it, and it's usually well below actually what they owe, which is another scary thing.
Right. Another fallacy, too, I found with the home buying situation is that a lot of people say, oh, I'm paying $1,500, $1,700 a month for rent. I can afford to pay that for a home. And then when you do the numbers and you say to them, no, you can't. That is way above the 32% of your monthly gross income that we recommend to be the maximum. They're like, I can't buy a house for that little. There's no house I would want for that little. And we say, this is not your last house, it's your first house, not your dream house necessarily, but you've got to start somewhere, and where you start, you need to be able to sustain. So that's a fallacy that should be mentioned over and over. Not because you're paying that in rent, does that mean you can afford that, really, to pay that.
And your first house doesn't have to be your dream house.
Exactly.
The old starter house, you
didn't
build
we all start
on,
that? That's correct. We all started there.
That's great. What's the message you'd want, since this is, the show from the Children's Services Council, in our last couple of minutes, what message would you like children to get? Or what do you think is the most important thing parents should tell their children?
I think that parents have to be responsible. I think that we have to understand that our responsibility isn't just about the initial caring of our children, but to really teach them how to have those building blocks for the future, and financial literacy is a part of it. I
think a big message parents should try to give their children is consumerism. I mean, I think we all have little ones, so the three of us have little
Yes.
ones and your children, that children love to watch TV and buy things. And I think that parents really need to let kids know that it's advertising, marketing is there to get their attention, to want them to buy, and it's not necessarily what it is. And to think about money in relationship to things you need rather than always things you want, and to make purchases be like for a special occasion.
I've started already having Leia watch me go through the newspaper and clip coupons. So, of course, sometimes even that's a trap. You know, they get you to
Right,
buy
you buy
things you
more.
don't need or things you don't want because, oh, I'm
it's a good
saving 35
coupon.
cents. That's the other, make sure that you're buying things that you need.
That you need, yeah.
Yeah, I loved your thing about don't take the cart because I can't tell you how many times I go through and like, I came in for milk and bread and how did I wind up with a cart full of
$100 grocery bill.
Exactly, right. I think, Cindy, that I would like to say that we need to have financial literacy and money management in the curriculum in schools. I think that we've made a great start with our Kid Power and our KOPO. Junior League is also a great partner with financial literacy. But I think it should be mandatory that we carry this in the schools where the kids spend so much of the time. And then a parent university night. Each school should have one per semester for the parents so they know what their kids are learning and everybody can be on the same page.
Would
that's
be
a very
wonderful.
good idea.
And I think if the schools could get behind financial literacy, it would make a difference for generations to come.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, the Children's Services Council has been a good partner in financial literacy, obviously, in the Prosperity Campaign, and we're going to be behind getting into the schools now as well, working with the Sun Sentinel News and Education Program. We'll also have some curriculum in the school. So keep your eyes out. Hopefully we can help move that ball a little bit further. So parents, grandparents, and educators teach children so many things, big and small: personal safety, respect for others, how to tie their shoes, and how to ride a bike. Be sure to add financial literacy to that list. I want to thank Marcia Barry Smith of the Bank Atlantic Foundation, April Lewis of Consolidated Credit Counseling, and Jermaine Smith-Baugh of the Urban League of Broward County for helping us identify some of the means by which Broward County residents can make the most of these and other resources available to them to impart to their children sound money management skills. I have been your host, Cindy Arenberg-Seltzer, President and CEO of the Children's Services Council of Broward County. For copies of this program or any other episode of Future First, call us at 954-377-1000 or visit www.cscbroward.org. And be sure to join us next time on Future First, focus on Broward's children.